So this is for all of our real estate investors, and we are the Happy House Hunters. We are also the group of the ins and outs of opening a guest house, a bed and breakfast, all the above. And we are also the newbie real estate investors. So there are three different groups over on Meetup, and two of those groups also have Facebook pages that you can tap into. And that's where we post all of our good stuff there. I don't know if any of you saw my post from yesterday. I love everything about real estate. So even on my days off, when I have date night, I go out with one of my real estate girlfriends and we, of course, look at property on date night. That is our fun thing to do. It's actually turned into a hobby. I enjoy it. And for those of you that like to watch HGTV, yeah, we're just out there looking at properties and we kind of compare ourselves to what they're doing. And of course, for those of us that, happen to watch HGTV, for those of us that really do real estate, we know that they have to bring the drama into the show to make it to make it a show. And so I love it when and Derek, I know you probably have to chuckle when it was something that we run into all the time, and they'll take a board off, and then the show, they give you a cliffhanger right there. Everybody looks at each other and goes, oh, what are we going to do now? And you and I are both like, yeah, that's not a
Yeah,
big
whatever,
deal.
right?
So, but make it, they're trying to make a TV show. So we get it. But it is kind of fun to get out there. The last date night before my most recent date night, we actually looked at a church that has been kind of abandoned and it's up for auction. And I told Mark that we could go to the auction, but I was going to tie his hands behind his back so he couldn't bid and actually buy a church. Of course, he told me he thought he'd look pretty good in the collar, but I told him, no, we are not buying a church. But he's kind of excited about it. It's all brick, all the stained glass windows are still there. And yes, folks, opening bid is $12,500.
Wow.
So I can
Wow.
just see him buying that. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to keep him away from that auction. But anyway, it's all good. It's all good.
Can you turn it
Let's
into a cool guest house?
Um, actually, it would work as a VRBO. You could put a balcony bedroom in there, suspend the balcony so that you can still see all the stained glass windows, but the ceiling is totally missing and it's all slate roof, and the ceiling is way up there. So heating something like that would be a little tough, and heating and cooling. And the location is outside of Lancaster, so I don't know what kind of a draw there would be and what kind of a price you could put on that to offset those big heating costs and cooling costs. And so there's, in real estate, I say this all the time, and Kyle has heard me say this over and over, there's always good, better, and best. There's no bad real estate deal, because time will make a bad deal into a good deal. How many times have we maybe, for those of us that are a little older, how many times have we bought something years past and we were thinking, oh my gosh, I paid so much for that. But now when you look at what it's worth or what our payoff is, or even what our interest rate is, we're saying, oh, thank God I bought that when I did. Look at what that would cost me today. And so even if you think there's not a lot of room in the numbers at the beginning, time will put room in your numbers. So as we invest, we have different visions of our investing because we're at different stages of our life. And Mark and I all the time look at each other and go, oh, we wish we were 40 again, because there are some deals out there that we would be grabbing, even though there's not a lot of room in the numbers. We would grab them if we had more time. But because I'm almost to the 70 mark and he's almost to the 80 mark, we're like, probably we want to get something that's got a little more room in the numbers today, because we don't have 20 or 30 years for that deal to turn into a great deal. So we have to kind of pass on the good and the better, and we have to go for the best numbers simply because of our age. And so I get that. So for those of you that are younger, sometimes even buying a property that's not even cash flowing is not a bad deal. because time will turn that into a better deal. And, 30 years down the road, when that mortgage is paid off, it'll be the best deal ever. So, don't get too hung up on that is what I'm saying. So just keep looking and you'll know when one of those good deals falls into your lap. The more you look at property, the more you understand today's market. And so I spend, and this is me, I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm not saying to be successful, you have to do this, but I'm probably looking online for property 6 to 8 hours a week. And in person, I'm probably doing another 6 to 8 hours a week. So, and when you think about a job being a 40-hour-a-week job, and then you look at me and I'm spending 16 to 20 hours a week just looking at real estate. But I love it. And so we make it into date night. We make it into a hobby. We go hiking and then look at the cabin. We go out to dinner and then look at the church. We take a trip and then look at the condo. So we turn it all into something that's fun. And again, if you love the HGTV, which I have a girlfriend that's the channel that she just has playing in the background all the time. If you love that, it's kind of like having your own little version of that when you're out there looking at all these properties, because then you can say, oh, well, if I had this and I was on the TV show, I would actually paint this color and I would, furnish it this way. And so you can kind of make a game out of it and make it fun. And then when that deal falls into your lap and you've looked at enough real estate, you're like, oh, I am so buying this one. The numbers are so good. I am not letting anybody else get close to this one. So anyway, that's just my little spiel about real estate. We love it. We're going through, in this particular program, we're going through the 6 F's of real estate, which is how to find it. And we have in my screen, Kyle. Oh, Kyle is over here in my screen. Kyle is our finder. He is a licensed realtor. And so he not only finds all the properties for us, but he can get us in there. And we are doing boots on the ground this Wednesday. We haven't done a boots for a while. And Kyle has, is it a condo, Kyle, that you have? Yes.
Yeah, it's a condo in the Charleston Lakes community of Canal Winchester. Very nice.
Very nice community. Love it, love it, love it. And are we in for 4 o'clock? Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So get in touch with me. You can go to kathybenner.com and you'll see my calendar of events. And my phone number is right there. And so just give me a text and let me know if you're coming to the boots 4 o'clock on Wednesday. And then right after that, we go to Profit for Real Estate in Lancaster. And the presenter at Profit for Real Estate, his name is Brian, and he does videos and pictures of properties. He actually videoed my guest house, my bed and breakfast, and that we use in our advertising. And he's going to talk all about great pictures and videos and how important they are. So that's going to be a fun night. But if we back up a night to Tuesday night, the Happy House Hunters, which is this group, along with the COIN, which is the Central Ohio Investors Network, we are all meeting at, I have 5 o'clock is when we like to show up, but I don't think the meeting gets underway right at 5. But they are now at the Ohio Brewing Company in Columbus. It's a great location. It's just a fun place to hang out for a little bit, and we do hang out, and everything kind of ends up around 8 o'clock. Everything is over. But anyhow, it's the 3rd Tuesday of each month at the Ohio Brewing, and then it's the 3rd Wednesday of each month in Lancaster at the Pizza Cottage for Profit with Real Estate. And we, as a group, participate in both of those. And then we're just going to add on Kyle's Boots on the Ground Wednesday at 4. So come out and join us. And I'd love to buy this condo, Kyle. If cash were not a problem, and again, I'll go back to what I'm saying before, if I were a little younger and could have that paid off in time, that would be a perfect retirement for someone. Because the older Mark and I get, the more we realize we really don't want to mow grass every weekend, and we really don't want to have to clean out the gutters, and we really would like to have a swimming pool that someone else is cleaning, and in a fitness room that somebody else is maintaining the equipment, and we can just drink our coffee on the patio. That's the older we get, the more we Rita's like, yep, got that. So that's kind of where we're at. So anyway, with all of that said, I am going to, again, go through our 6 Fs, and I'm going to turn over to Derek. In January, we do this twice a year. So in January, we talk about finding, which is Kyle. In February, we talk about funding. Oh, we got a mic there. In February, we talk about funding, which is how to get the money for all of these deals. And then, of course, no, okay, we're trying to mute Amanda. Amanda, I'm trying to keep you muted there while we're talking for a moment. So then in February, it's all about funding, which is Adam, and he's not on with me today. And then we go to fixing. How do we fix these properties, whatever needs to be fixed? And then from there, we talk about, well, once you fix them, do you either want to flip them or do you want to fill them? Meaning, do you want to hold it as a rental? And then we finally talk about what is your freedom number? How many of those do you need to do to make your day job optional? And then in July, we start over with finding again. And we have a different speaker or presenter every single month. And so for this month, our topic is flipping, but Derek, not only does he fix and flip and fill and do all of those things with real estate, I have a couple of historic properties that I only let Derek touch. I don't let anybody else work on them but Derek because his work is amazing. So I will say that, and hopefully he will share some of that amazing work with us today. So Derek, tell us a little bit about your background. What was your history? How did you actually get started doing what it is that you're doing, and then go on into your presentation?
Okay, sure. So a long time ago, when I was first starting college at Ohio State, I got my first full-time job to pay my way through college was working for two real estate investors who had about 150 units scattered across 50 properties. And every year they would purchase another house to rehab and rent. And most of these were in the Victorian Village area. And so this is back in the 90s. And I learned everything I know about that from that job. Well, I eventually moved up to Cleveland and finished my degree at Cleveland State and got my mechanical engineering degree. And while I was up there, I was working part-time as a painting estimator. I wasn't very good at painting, but they knew I could do math. And so I did that, and it was great because it was very flexible hours. So anyway, then I got into the engineering world. I'm now a recovering engineer. And
I love that, a recovering engineer.
But during the time I was doing engineering, I was still doing remodeling projects for myself and on the weekends for other people and making a little extra money. So I never really stopped doing it. And my last engineering job kind of burnt me out on that. And so I started doing remodeling. I had work the very next day after I lost my job. I had work, so I've been doing that now full time for about 7 years. And currently, I have a flip that I'm partnered on, and it's still in the very beginning stages because there was some problems with the estate, and they were hoarders, and then there was a fire. So that's something that we'll probably look at later this year, hopefully. And then last year was a very busy year. I did 4 rehab projects amongst a bunch of other smaller projects, and I'm going to share the big one with you guys. And it initially started out, I'll tell you the story here, but it initially started out as a flip project, and then it turned out differently. I'll explain why. So I guess I'm ready.
Perfect. Make sure that you're able to share your screen there.
Okay, let's see.
You've got the little green button maybe at the bottom that says share screen.
Okay, there we go. Share.
We see it.
Okay, you see blue?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Here's my title is Flip or Flop. And to Kathy's point earlier about properties that, you can always make a good deal out of a bad deal. And I'll tell more of the story here. I'm going to talk about the scope, the process, what I recommend for finishing touches, and then before and after pics, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Initially, this is a member of Happy House Hunters, longtime member, and he reached out to me and initially wanted just some help with deciding if it needed some framing. And I arrived there. It was late at night, dark in the place. It was really spooky. And we walked around and looked at stuff. And he had hired somebody to do a couple things. It needed all new electric and possibly plumbing. So he hired this guy who said he was an electrician. And I think this would have been my first warning sign, was the guy wanted to live there while he was working on the place.
Oh,
And there was no plumbing and very little. He put in a new electrical panel, and that's about as far as he got. And he was going to do the water heater, and he stole the water heater, the dolly, a couple other of the owner's tools, and never finished. He also used the toilet in the bathroom, even though there was no water, running water. So that comes up later. I'll share what happened there. So at that point, hearing everything that had happened, I kind of said, well, I mean, it's a long drive up here. This project happened in Marion, Ohio, and that's an hour and a half drive from my house. But I needed some work, and it looked like he needed my help, so we agreed. The first thing I did was create a scope of work and drawings for my plan, and I'll show those a little bit later. Ended up, we both hired out the help, whoever could find somebody, and he had a handyman that he hired to help me, and that didn't turn out great for me, but I did need help, and so he was there. He was just a little bit hard to work with. And with every project, everything always changes. You have to anticipate that things are going to change. So that happened a lot. And if this guy had contacted me before he bought the property, I probably would have told him not to buy it or something. We would have come up with a little different plan. But he had already started. He had already.
but why did you say that, Derek? What was it about the house that you maybe would have advised him not to buy it? What was the big
I
stopper for
probably would
you?
have said either offer less than what you're going to pay or don't buy it. You got to set your numbers. I don't think he knew how to run the numbers for a flip. He does have rentals. He's not typically the kind of owner who does a full rehab. He usually just buys them and fixes what needs fixed. So he's not a BRRRR investor.
Can
So
you explain BRRRR to some of our newbies?
yeah. So BRRRR is a oh, well, I forget what it's called. Anyway, B stands
Acronym.
for buy, acronym. Buy, rehab, rent, and then refinance.
And then repeat.
Yeah, and then repeat. And you eliminate the rehab there. I mean, the idea with a BRRRR is you're raising the property value by forcing appreciation, so that you can borrow and do it again. And so you're leveraging yourself there.
And you're saying this buyer, this owner doesn't normally use that strategy.
No, he's more of a buy it with cash and hold it, and he doesn't like using financing. So he has a little different method. It works. It just takes a lot longer to recoup your money. Your ROI is over several years. So anyway, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. You'll see what I mean. But the house needed so much work, and I think maybe Kathy, we've talked about this before. Just because a property is cheap doesn't mean it's a good deal. And
Mhm.
you know, this was a market, Marion, if anyone's familiar. The economy is suffering. There's a lot of drug problems. You know, so the whole time we were there were cops on the street every day. You know, you were seeing some kind of drama in someone else's life happening right across the street or down the street. So it's just a
And the rents aren't as high in
yeah,
Marion as other
exactly.
areas,
Yeah,
but your building materials are the same cost.
yeah, exactly. Everything costs just as much to fix, but you're not going to get your money as quickly. So um, I'll keep going from there. We'll talk a bit more about that. So after about we were right in the timeline that I expected. In spite of me going on 2 vacations during that time, we actually finished it in 5.5 months. And then he got an appraisal, and the cool thing was it appraised much higher than we thought it would. But at that point, he had just as much money in it as it was appraised for. So there was no
Oh,
room. There was no equity at all. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, you know, you're going to get your money back. But then he had to figure out, well, I can't flip it. Now what do I do? And so he found a resident, and that resident paid what he wanted in rent. So he's fine now. And that's the end result.
so he started out thinking this was going to be a flip, and he
Yeah.
ended up making it a buy and hold.
Right, right, exactly. And we did talk about other options, but nothing really worked in that Marion area. I mean, you couldn't do a short-term rental or a midterm rental. The only other thing I could think of for a house this size was maybe you know, like a halfway house kind of thing, sober living or you know what have you, and that would be
Where
something.
maybe there would even be some grant money
Right,
income. Yeah.
exactly. But it's not something that he had ever done before. So he considered it, and it's still a possibility in the future. I know you can make a lot more money on those than you could on just regular long-term
Mhm.
rental. So anyway, it turned out really good. It was great opportunity for me, and we made it work for him as well. So
Now there is a thing that I like to call a long flip, and what that means is if I have a property like this is a perfect example where I ended up having to put too much into the rehab, and so now it doesn't make sense to flip it because I'm not going to really make any money. I'm going to just kind of break even, and that's a lot of work to break even. Sometimes, like your owner here, I can rent it and maybe even rent it for 2 years or 5 years, whatever. And then once it's paid down and the equity goes up and you've got more room in those numbers, then you can put it on the market. And I fondly call that a long flip.
exactly, and it's there's nothing wrong with
Mhm.
that at all. I just talk about well, I'll talk about this in a little bit, but you should have multiple exit strategies. Exit doesn't mean you're necessarily even selling the house. It's just what are you going to do with it? So, okay, so sorry, I've got some allergies going on today. So
It's
this
that
is
time of
just
year.
yeah, this is just the basic scope. I'm not going to go into that much detail in that. But here's what we did, and then I
And
put
now
next to
for
it.
your listeners, just make sure you have a scope when you're
Yeah,
looking at buying a property for the first time. This is what you have to do is put together what is going to be your scope of work. What kind of investment are you going to have to make up front?
yeah, and I think I did a presentation maybe a couple of years ago on
Mhm.
sharing an example of a scope of work, and that's definitely very important. It's how you organize and plan. So I put next to it who did the work, just so you kind of know what I did and what we hired out. I don't do roofs anymore. I don't do ladders, so this was someone else. He had already had the chimney removed when I went there the first time. You'll see a couple pictures of that. The
For
siding.
those of you that are just getting into, yeah, for those of you that are just getting into investment properties, when you talk about removing a chimney, you have to understand that you've got mechanicals in the house, your furnace, oftentimes is gas, your hot water tank, and sometimes those mechanicals are vented through an old chimney that is no longer being used for a fireplace, but your mechanicals are being vented there. So that's the first question you have to solve is any of my mechanicals being vented before you decide to remove a chimney? If
Well,
the
and
answer is no,
that's perfect timing for you to say that, because he didn't realize that, and had, well, the first water heater was stolen. The second one was already installed by the handyman, and it vented into the chimney that he had already had the top removed from. So he didn't realize that that was necessary. And we saw that first night I went out there. I said, well, this is the chimney that you've already removed the top of it and patched the roof, mainly because it was leaking. But you've also installed a water heater that vents through this chimney. Now what are we going to do?
so now you have to, yeah, now you have to figure out how you're going to vent that water heater.
Yeah, and we did. I figured it out pretty quickly, and I'll share that as we go as well. That it already had some relatively new siding, maybe 10 years old, and the roof was very, very fresh. All new roof sheathing, and that was a good thing. That's a big cost. But he did want to replace the windows, and he had a good window guy. There were many windows. I want to say about 23 or 4 maybe.
It's a lot of windows.
But he had already contracted this guy to replace the windows, and since he didn't have a plan, really, the window guy just measured the upstairs windows, and they were all very small because the upstairs was just a big giant attic, and I'll show that as well. So I'm going to talk about windows a little bit more after this. I ended up doing all the electrical. The guy who put the panel in did not know what he was doing, so I had to redo everything. He was not an electrician. I think he just needed a place to live and knew a little bit about enough to get himself in trouble. And then when he realized he couldn't do it, he took off with some stuff he could sell. So then we ended up replacing all the drains and all the supply lines. The drains in the basement were all cast iron. We replaced those with PVC, and there was minimal plumbing remaining. There was some copper, but we ended up using PEX because it's a lot cheaper and faster. I think I did all the plumbing in 3 days, I believe.
Derek, I actually like PEX better these days
Yeah.
than copper. It seems like I can never keep the copper fittings from not leaking. And the PEX, like you said, it's cheaper, it's easier, it's readily available, it's faster. And most contractors are going over to PEX.
Yeah.
So make a note if you're getting ready to rehab a house.
Yeah, normally if I'm doing something like a bathroom or a kitchen, which I do most of the time, I replace with what's there. I don't switch over to a different kind of plumbing. I do copper very well. I've been doing it since I was probably a teenager. And there was one of our members, Chris Utter, had me do a bathroom where I added a bathroom. I used PEX there because it was all new and it saved him some money. The thing about PEX is you really need to test it. It does have a failure rate that's higher. I mean, you would test copper as well, but you want to make sure that all your connections are tight. Because if they're in the wall and then they leak, you're in trouble. So anyway, that went well. We hired an HVAC guy, and I did not find this guy. He was older, retired, and he ended up doing way too much for the house's size. had a background in industrial commercial HVAC, and so he did it that way. He didn't really understand, I don't think he really understood residential, and I ended up doing some of the duct work because he was just going to go overkill and cut up floors and all kinds of stuff, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. The first floor had oak flooring throughout, and we refinished those and hired out, and I have a great guy who's local who did those, and I'm going to use him again for sure. I can do that, but it was so much faster to have someone do it. We carpeted the second floor because it was all new and we just had plywood to cover. Insulated everything we could. They blew in insulation in the top of the attic and the behind the knee walls, and then insulated all the walls with fiberglass. And wherever we had open walls on the first floor, they got insulated. So it was pretty much 75% of the house is insulated. So.
And that's good to know, because if you're going to sell it, that helps with the buyers feeling more comfortable buying it. And if you're going to hold it as a rental, it keeps the utility bills down for your tenants,
Right.
which makes them stay longer.
Right, exactly. And it's a big place. So big old place. I think it was built in around 1890, 1900. We tried to retain as much woodwork and doors on the first floor, and that's my forte. We patched the plaster. The original drywall contractor was someone the owner found and knew, but and he had said that he could do all the plaster repair as well, but he ended up having a scheduling conflict. I think maybe his wife had passed away or something like that. And so then I found another drywall contractor, but they did not know how to do patchwork. So I ended up doing that. And we hired the drywallers. They were exceptional. They also did textured ceilings, which I'll show you, and they're very pretty. Then I hired my painter. He's exceptional, and I'm going to use him on my flip. I talked about the textured ceilings, and now an existing plaster, that was not a sub, sorry, that was me. Oh wait, the textures, yes, they textured over existing plaster and the new drywall, sorry about that. And then the second floor originally was, sorry, a big attic. And we made 3 bedrooms, a full bath, and a sitting room up there.
Wow.
So we basically, the first
You
floor,
built another whole house, Derek.
yeah. The first floor had 2 bedrooms, a full bath, and a sitting room, dining room, living room, kitchen. And then you had a hidden, like a closet entry. It was just a door in a bedroom that went up to the attic. I call it a hidden stairway. And one of my ideas initially was, let's put an entry door at the bottom of that stairway out to a deck and make the second floor a second unit. But you double your costs. Like you're going to have 2 kitchens, you're going to have 2 furnaces, 2 water heaters, and so we decided not to go that way because he was pretty confident he could rent out a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath house.
Now,
And
what is the house zoned though? Was it zoned to be multifamily?
no.
Okay, so he
That's-
would have had, if he
yeah.
decided to do that, he would have had to have gone
Yeah.
to the city to have it
And
rezoned.
that was part of the reason. And the other part of it was he did not want to pull permits on this project.
Okay,
And I said, I will do the project, but it's on you if you get in trouble for not pulling permits. So our feeling was that in Marion, they're just happy that someone's buying a house and it's getting fixed, and we never got any problems from that. Okay, so that's now on to part 3, and I'll share the rehab process as I like to do them, this is some advice. Always plan your exit strategies. I talked about that earlier. And for each exit strategy, kind of do the math. Of course, things will change, but as you go along, you can adjust your calculations, and you can also adjust your exit strategies. But you should try to have multiple ideas in mind. And if you don't know how to do something, or it's not your specialty, call on your team. That would be your realtor, your contractor, even lawyer, accountant, etc. And that's where I think he should have called me earlier. I wish he had, but it worked out fine, you know. So create a scope of work, and it would include a timeline, your tasks, costs of materials and labor, the contractors that you'd like to assign. And you know, this always changes as well. This is a live document that you use during the project. Choose your finished materials appropriate for comps. What that means is, if you're in a neighborhood where everyone has a garage, you probably should put a garage in if you're gonna sell it. If you know, if it's a nice neighborhood where everyone has beautiful floors and you know, nice landscaping, granite countertops, you know, you name it, that's what you want to have. And you know, that's just for anything. If you're renting, same thing. You know, you don't want to go overboard on your rental. If no one else has these features, you might not want to have the best property on the block. You want to complete tasks in the right sequence. This was something, again, if you had contacted me earlier, we probably wouldn't have removed the chimney. Maybe we would have. Um, there's something going on with the windows that I'll talk about when we get there. The water heater thing, all that comes into play when you're not doing things in the right sequence. You know, normally for a flip, you start on the outside, you make sure that the property is weather tight and it starts looking nice on the outside. So it wasn't wrong for him to do the windows early. And you know, the chimney and the roof repair, none of that was wrong. But you have to think about what's after that. You know, order your long lead items early, schedule contractors early, because they're on a schedule, and contractors can't always do something when you need them. And I get this all the time. People want to know when I'm going to start, and I'm like, well, I'll let you know as I get closer, but I can't tell you right now. You know, I can't narrow it down to the day. I might be able to get to the end of the month or something like that. And long lead items, this was especially true during COVID, but it's still true now. I think for the most part, windows and doors, things like that, that you might have to order, are going to take around 6 weeks, maybe longer sometimes. Certainly, these windows, I believe, took about that long. So,
Derek, I remember during COVID, we couldn't get appliances.
yeah, exactly.
There was no appliances in stock at any Lowe's or Home Depot or Menards. We couldn't get appliances anywhere.
Right. Yeah. You want to hire good contractors. I think the best way is to use your resources, use your team, to find people that have worked for someone you know. And that's what we did, and that's what I always do. If I'm subbing something, it's someone that I know or my friend has used, and I have immediate feedback. Don't go on Craigslist.
We have a list of resources inside the Happy House Hunters, by the way. I will toss that out there.
And I've used that as well. Yes. And, you know, and so we didn't have any problems with contractors. They were all good. And we had differences of opinion. We had, you know, that kind of thing, but we didn't have any problem. And my client always pays everyone on time. He's very good about that. So I didn't have any problems either. So everything worked out really well. With the exception of the guy that was living there, and I think the owner learned his lesson on that. I think that was a Craigslist find or something. We also, there was a neighbor who was very helpful. We ended up hiring the neighbor to do the roof repairs and the chimney removal. And then that's how we found the drywall guys, was through him. So he ended up being a great resource as well. If you can't manage a project or never have, hire somebody. So I was paid to do this. And I enjoy doing it. It's, you know, it's fun. So I actually did a lot of the work on the project, but I was also managing. The project manager does these things: follows the scope, communicates with contractors and owners, orders materials, understands the end goals, does it, you know, makes it all cohesive, evaluates and adjusts as the project moves forward, which we did a lot of. And then stick to your plan. If you change something, evaluate the costs and ROI first, return on investment. So we had to evaluate that numerous times because we would end up with something we didn't expect. You know, one example was, hey, is it better for us to replace this vent type water heater with a power vent, which is a high efficiency that costs twice as much, so that we don't need to vent somewhere else since that chimney is gone? And he really didn't want to spend the money on another water heater and then have this spare water heater sitting around that he couldn't use. So I looked up what we could do with double wall vent that went up through an enclosure in the house instead of a chimney. And that's what we ended up doing because that didn't cost very much to put in. So we kept the water heater, we vented it up through the wall, and I'll show you pictures of how we did that. But we still removed the chimney. You do not need a chimney, you just have to be able to vent that correctly. All right, finishing touches. Now, this is my advice, and it's not written in stone, but this is what I've noticed through the years, having worked for people on projects. You know, whether they be flips, long-term rental, short-term rental, mid-term rental, um, turnkey rentals where you're selling it, you're flipping it as a rental. Any of those options, I kind of cover just some little basic tips, and it's not by any means comprehensive, but it gives you an idea of what I would suggest. So your investment strategies determine what kind of finishes. You know, you're not always going to do it the same for a long-term rental as you would for a flip. Okay. For a fix and flip, you want it basically to be like a new house. That doesn't mean everything has to be new, but you want it to appear like new. I wouldn't go overboard with custom things because normally people buy a house and then they change it or they add or subtract. But I like to do a couple things that give it a little flair. I always do maybe about 3 things that are just different. On a presentation I did 3 years ago, I shared those items. One of them was a custom railing, and there was a shiplap chimney covering and something else. I don't remember. It might have been a barn door. Yeah, there was a barn door. On the one I'm doing now, we're going to wrap the porch columns in cedar, which is a popular thing. And then we're going to do a barn door, and we're doing one other item we haven't determined yet. So I like to do a few things, but not too much. And then you look around and you see what do people like and what do people want. It's for the end buyer, it's not for you. So you don't want to do, your favorite thing might be magenta walls, you know, but don't do that because nobody wants that except for you. I hope I didn't offend anyone by that. Anyway, midterm rental, you also want it to look new and maybe some creative decorations, but not over the top. We actually rent to a traveling nurse, and you know, you want it to be comfortable just like your own home. And the other thing you have to consider, well, a lot of these people, like traveling nurses, work odd hours, and so we put in blinds that completely block the light so that they can sleep during the day, and things like that. Smart TV for sure.
Mhm.
Whatever you would want if you were traveling away from home. And on that topic, for this project, since I would have to commute an hour and a half each way, um, the owner and I agreed on a per diem for me so that I could stay up there. And the whole time I was up there, which was I think 22 weeks, 21, something like that, every week I stayed in Airbnbs in the area. So I found a couple that were my favorite, but I couldn't always stay in the same one. But I learned a lot about short-term rentals just by staying in a lot of them, and it was fun. But this is the key: they felt like home, and if they didn't feel like home or they weren't comfortable, I didn't go back. So something to consider. Short-term rentals, same kind of thing, but you can get a little bit more creative with those. Those are the ones where if you have something unique like a church or whatever, you definitely want to use that because it becomes an experience for people. The other thing is you make more money with amenities. You look up the list of amenities and you see on Airbnb what they have or what they don't have. And we travel quite a bit, and for example, we went out to Colorado recently and stayed at an Airbnb, and there's a couple things that I would have changed if it were mine. And you see those things and you notice, and that's how you should look at it. You should actually have people come into your place and give their opinion. So that's how you can use your team as well. You can even use friends to do that. Turnkey, again, would be something. A turnkey rental is one that you've either sell or buy, but it's already ready to go. And a lot of times management comes with that. I know some people that do turnkey rentals, and so they're flipping, but they're selling them as a rental. A lot of times they're doubles. You want to keep it neutral, just like you would a long-term rental. You'll end up with, mini blinds, nice, comfortable, and safe, but really not over the top at all. And like a long-term rental, same thing: safe, comfortable, practical, attractive, but also easy to replace or repair. Um, in more details, I would say, like, it doesn't matter if you're doing a complete rehab on a long-term rental, as long as it follows these things: safe, comfortable, practical, and attractive. I've seen some where they don't do anything. All the rooms are different colors, and you got different color carpeting everywhere. And I'm like, I don't know if I'd want to live here, but it depends on where it is. There's some places where people are just happy to have a place that's safe, and that's it. They don't care about weird carpet and paint colors, or this weird quirky faucet that doesn't really work that well. But I would fix it myself, but it all depends on what the numbers are. Run your numbers for these different exit strategies to determine whether they work or not, and where you want to be when you buy the property.
Now I'm going to jump in and say this: whenever I'm buying a property, I always start with the long-term numbers. If the numbers work long-term, even if I think when I'm buying it, like, oh, this would make a great midterm, or this is in an area where I really could do a short term, I do the numbers on the long term. So that's kind of my fallback exit strategy. So for some reason, like if you remember during COVID, all the events got canceled. And then if you had short-term rentals, a lot of your guests were canceling, and even platforms like Airbnb and VRBO, they were doing 100% refunds to everyone because it was illegal for people to even travel to some of these events. And so they weren't going to penalize the guest. And so all of a sudden I had reservations just dropping off every day. And so for me, I just made sure that whatever property I have, if I had to fall back and just rent it to a long-term renter, that my numbers still work for me and I don't have to add money into the fund to keep that property afloat.
Right. And that is why, like, Yeah, you want the number to work for that. And another option would be like, or another situation would be where the municipality where you bought this property to do short-term rental changes the laws, and then you're not allowed to anymore. You should always make sure that you have another exit strategy. It might be selling the property, but you got to have something to fall back on. And I know some people, clients, who came into the same situation that you're talking about, and they actually sold their short-term rental. But then they ended up buying the neighboring house, which I rehabbed and I did that presentation on. So, and then they flipped that one. So they made money on all of their properties eventually. And just like you're saying, you could always change your exit strategy. I always say make your finished details as good or just slightly better than the comps. That way your place stands out a little bit. It's especially true, if we're not in that situation now where there's plenty of rentals, but when there are, yours is the only rental in that area that has a dishwasher or looks nice or whatever. Or if it's a flip, every house on the street has this, but yours is the only one that has a barn door somewhere in the house, just a little bit better. I think it's best to keep big ticket items neutral. And the reason for that is they are big ticket items. If you're doing a flip, you do want nice appliances. And but funny thing is, people buy houses and they don't like the appliances, no matter how nice they are. They will end up replacing them a lot of times. If you're, doing a short-term rental, you have a nice couch. It looks cool, but you can always dress up that couch with pillows and coverings and stuff. So I say go neutral because you can always change. If you've got basic carpet, you can always flare the carpet up with a rug on top. All right. And then you just go trendy on your decorations. So if you are furnishing the place like a midterm or short term, you can change out your decorations to be trendy all the time. You can add stuff, subtract it, whatever. And that goes for fixtures as well. You don't want some crazy ceiling fan that's going to be out of style in a year, because it costs money to replace that. So just kind of go neutral. It's interesting to see how long styles stay in. And, right now, black hardware is the thing. And, for a while, black trim on the outside of a white house was a thing. And I don't think it is a thing anymore. Even though you see it, you're like, that's kind of gone now already. So, but for many, many, many years, brass was a thing. Well, now it's not. You can take a brass doorknob and buy paint at the store and make it a black doorknob if it's perfectly functional. I would do that in a heartbeat. Okay, then this is my rule, and you should listen to it. Do not go cheap on plumbing fixtures. Do not buy store brands. And the examples would be Glacier Bay. I don't remember Lowe's store brand, but they seem like they're a better deal, but they are not. They're not good. You're going to end up with higher costs in replacement and repairs later. That's my reason for that. It's worth spending $20 more for a name brand plumbing fixture. Electric's different. You can buy used electrical fixtures. Make sure they're good quality. If they're chintzy, don't buy them. But I've had clients purchase light fixtures online, and then we get them and I have to put them together. I had one chandelier where I had to make 38 electrical connections in it. It looked like a tree. It had branches. All of those were not connected. And they didn't want to pay the labor that I wanted to charge. I did get some of my money out of that one, but that was a big debacle. So I usually ask clients now to show me what they're going to buy before they buy it. Or if they've already bought it, I will tell them whether I'm going to put it in or not based on that. I'll show you in this project what we did with the electrical fixtures. It's kind of a good money saving hack. This is something else I prefer in my home, or any home that I would do. I prefer solid core doors. They just hold up better. They transfer sound less. For definitely for flips and high-end rentals, I would do that. So just consider that. If you're not going to do solid core doors, at least do solid core on the bathrooms. And then, you know, just generally, just have your bathroom finishes such as tile versus, you know, builder grade acrylic, you know, whatever. You want to be kind of like your comps. So if you're in a neighborhood where nobody really has granite countertops, then you don't have to do it. Although I would say it's worthwhile no matter what. They're durable. I would go with quartz. It's a little easier to take care of than granite. And it's very practical. Now, if you think that you're in an area where people will just end up destroying your unit, don't do that. But I would say in most cases, I would just spend the extra money on it. Bathrooms, there's a big cost difference between a you know, like a three-piece surround versus tile on your shower or tub. There's a big cost difference. Now, tile will definitely last longer, but I don't, you know, I would definitely weigh that. We certainly did on this project, and we ended up with good quality tubs and surrounds. You'll see them. And then I like to make all the hardware and fixtures match. Not everyone does this. That's a pet peeve of mine. When they don't, it looks terrible when you've got black doorknobs and everything else is nickel. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I like to keep them all the same. It's kind of hard to find some in black. Sometimes the blacks don't match, but if they're not next to each other, you can't really tell. Okay. All right. So those are my little tips. I'm sure there's more to think about. Those were just the things that came to mind, and I'll go over a couple more while we're looking at pictures here. Okay, now the fun part. Here's our before and after pics, okay? So this is the exterior. It doesn't look very big, but looks are deceiving. It's actually a very large house. It has a neat little oval window, which we couldn't save. We repaired and painted the front porch. The handyman that was helping me did all that. All new windows, like I said earlier. We removed the unused chimney and patched the roof. New roof drain vents. Patched the 2 fence gates. We could have done a lot more with the fence, but it was just a huge yard in the back, you know, and none of the neighbors' fences looked very good, so we just left it the way it was. I just made the gates functional. Here's kind of a couple after shots. I didn't get a lot of shots of the outside, but you can see how much nicer the porch looks. And then if you look up on the right hand side there, you'll see the new window that I put in. And I used some shiplap to kind of, it had existing siding, so I really couldn't change that. So I had to make a stock window work, and that's what I did for pretty low cost. This is the living room. We're just going to walk through the house, and this is the living room before. We removed that drop ceiling and then found that the plaster was not in good shape. Here's another little point with that. People will often say, why don't you just put drywall over the plaster? It's okay, but later on you're going to have problems. The plaster is going to want to push down the drywall. You'll have bulges, you'll have problems. And the same thing with the lath. I'm like, as long as you're removing the plaster, just pull the lath down. It's easier to remove the plaster by pulling the lath down, and then you don't risk having problems later. It also
Derek, explain plaster and lath. There may be some folks on the call that they don't know what plaster and lath is.
I wish I had a picture to show you, but back in the day, and so this would probably be in the 1800s and into the early 1900s, they didn't have drywall. Drywall gypsum board was invented in the 1920s, but wasn't in use until in frequent use until after like the 40s, during the big building in the late 40s, early 50s, they started using drywall, but there was still plaster in use, and I'll explain why. So they used to use make
If you take a
plaster.
look at my screen, here's some old plaster and lath.
Ah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's wood lath, and that's what this house had. So what they did is they put up these little slats, wood slats, and then they used a scratch coat, which was one type of plaster. A lot of times they mixed in horsehair into that. And then they would do a finish coat, which was more of a white color, and make the walls smooth. And back then, the framing lumber wasn't even straight. I owned a house in Groveport where there was an 1.5 inch difference between one end of a 2x4 and the other. And they would put the flat side, because of the way they milled this lumber, they would put the flat side on the outside of the house and the rough side on the inside, because on the inside they could smooth it out with plaster. So you had a variance between 1/2 inch and 1 inch or so of plaster, but you couldn't tell until you were removing the wall. Well, anyway, moving forward, they replaced wood lath, which is flammable, with what was called rock lath. And rock lath is actually gypsum board. They just came in smaller sheets. They were, I think, 2x4 sheets instead of 4x8. And they would put the finished coat of plaster right over that rock lath, so they didn't have to have the scratch coat. That was more in the probably 30s and 40s.
And some of these houses that we're buying were built in those time frames.
Yep.
So you're going to run into some of this.
And some of it, they also have wire lath or wire mesh, and that is terrible stuff because it usually used it in the corners, like around the ceiling and the corners of the walls. It's hard to cut. It'll cut your hands up when you're trying to pull it out.
My entire dining room ceiling had both
Yeah.
wood and metal lath. It
Yeah.
was a nightmare.
Yes, it is terrible.
Mhm.
So, but once you get it out of there, then you've got a clean slate. The other advantage to removing it is it's a lot easier to run your plumbing and electric if you are, and vents, duct work. So that's what we were faced with. Now, a lot of the walls were in great shape, and if you look at the bottom photo where there's some wainscot, there's at the bottom of that wall. I don't know if my mouse shows up here, right there in this area.
Mhm.
This all had to be patched, but that was about the only real bad part. There were some other areas up towards the top. There was a wallpaper border. Let me hit the next thing. We removed that wainscot and the wallpaper top border, and then we had to patch the walls where that was. But we didn't have to replace it with drywall. We didn't cover it. We salvaged the wood cold air return grate and added, I'll show you. Over here on the left, there's a wood cold air return grate, and it was broken. But I could salvage part of it. I figured this out later. I'll show you a picture when we get there. We also got some used light fixtures and painted them all the same color. So there was a nice chandelier in this room that we ended up with. Now the pocket doors, I did get the doors out, but I determined that I couldn't fix the hardware. And it's very difficult to find new hardware, meaning the pulleys and or the wheels and everything. So I decided I'll leave them in the wall and just cover them. If somebody else ever wants to fix them, they can. If you can save them, they're cool, but in a rental, maybe not so good of an idea. So here's the finished result of that room. And you can see this was a used light fixture. We painted it a trendy color. We have the floors refinished. You'll see a little bit of discoloration around the edges. That's because this floor was painted around the edges of a rug. That was a common thing to do. And the middle section here was untouched, no finish whatsoever. All they had to do was sand it lightly, but they had to work a lot around these edges. I have the same thing at my house where they painted around the outside. Now, if you look over to the left here, that cold air return, I fixed part of it and cut it, and then took this metal return air grate from another room where we didn't need a cold air return, and I made it work. And I painted them both sort of a hammered metal finish, which is another little hack I do. So if you've got an old house and you can see these large grates here, like this one over here on the left, it's right here. Instead of trying to find a replacement, which is difficult and expensive, I know a place that sells them, you can just clean up the old ones with some lacquer thinner and then spray paint them. It takes very little time. You know, it took 5 minutes to clean it, 5 minutes to paint it, you're done. And they look nice. So that's something I like to do. More living room pictures. Here's before, kind of looking the other direction. And you can see the pocket door sticking out there. You can see some of the other little features like these double doors going into this other room. I'll show you that room in a minute. And then here's another after shot looking the other direction. And you see the neutral wall color. I think that's your color, Kathy, I believe.
It is. That's my color.
You got a text from me saying, what color do you use? And that's what we used.
Yeah, my favorite hack in rental properties is that all my rentals are painted the same color.
Yep.
And that way, in between move outs, it's a lot easier for us to flip a unit because my maintenance crew, they even carry at least 1 gallon and sometimes 5 gallons of that color in their utility vehicle. They have that color on hand. And when they go into a unit, they can, even if they have to paint one whole wall for some reason, they oftentimes don't have to trim and they don't have to paint the whole house in between flips.
Well, here's another thing. Just be careful of this. There are different sheens to paint.
Yes.
And this room, because it had so much plaster work that I did, I could have just kept going. It was really rough on the walls. So in this room and maybe one other room, I think the dining room, we used flat, and flat hides those flaws. You always use flat on a ceiling. I know some people don't, but we didn't want to have to paint the ceiling, so our cost savings was just a little bit more. Actually, I'm wrong. The drywall guys said it was cheaper to texture the ceilings than it was to make them smooth, and I agree. They don't have to sand them if they texture. They just do the seams once and then they put the texture on and they're done. So there's no sanding involved. So with putting texture, we didn't have to paint the ceilings. That saved us on paint and on the drywall cost. So if you look at the ceiling in on the right, it's what's called tree bark texture. Oops, what did I do? All right, I went forward too fast, but that's okay. Anyway, sorry, I clicked on something I didn't want to. I'm not even sure how to go back, but don't worry about it. You'll see it. This is the room off of the living room that we call the octagon room. And it's really cool. It's not a perfect octagon, but we're like, we got to do something with this. If you'll notice, the doorknob has a like toy steering wheel on it. So we had to do some work with that. We ended up just patching this one. There was wallpaper on the ceiling that had been painted over, but it was smooth. So we said, we'll just leave it. We were going to leave the trim, but it ended up not looking very good after we got it painted. So we painted the trim too. I don't like painting trim if you can help it, but it had so many staples and nails and stuff in it that we had to. We repaired the tile on the fireplace. It was just loose, so I just ended up using some adhesive. There was a missing shelf on the top of the fireplace, so I just made one. We painted a used light fixture again. We replaced the doorknobs with reproductions. You can buy these in the store or online. There's finished product there. You can see on the top of the fireplace there's a wooden shelf. You can kind of see that. I think I have a better picture of that too. Also took the grate and painted it, this one here. We had to open up this wall over here to the right of the door for some electrical. I don't remember what else, but I patched all that. We also had a leak behind us. show you another picture. So to the right of the fireplace, that wall had to be patched. It was leaking. Oh, I know what I was talking about. Paint sheen. There were 2 rooms that got flat paint, and the rest of the rooms got eggshell, I think. And the painter finished everything, said he was going to come back to touch up, and the handyman said, he'll have to drive over an hour. I'll just do the touch up. Well, he ended up touching up with the wrong sheen. And so the finished product, when you walked from room to room, you'd see little patches where he didn't match up the sheen correctly. So that was another issue I had with him, not personally, but he didn't listen very well with things like that. In this picture here, you can see the missing shelf at the top of the fireplace. You can see some of the water staining on the wall to the right of the fireplace. And then here's after we finished. And if you look up at the ceiling, you can tell that that's painted wallpaper. You can see the seams of the wallpaper, but it looks fine. And you can see the light fixture that we repurposed. And the beautiful floor. That one was already nice even before. Well, no, not so much. I guess it had paint too. Here's some details of the fireplace. You can see the shelf I made before and after. I basically just took a edge glued pine and then got some cove for the edges to make it look nice. And then I just stained it and polyed it. It only took me maybe an hour to do all that. And then you can see some of the old knobs on the fireplace there. Those are the things that we repurposed, reused if we could. Down below, you see the little whiteboard on the floor. That was our project list that we kept going. That was our active document, so to speak. It's great when you're on the site and you have a lot of projects. If you remember something, to write it down, and then when you complete a task, it feels good to erase it. And we kept filling up the whiteboard and then erasing stuff and filling it up and erasing. So I now have 2 whiteboards because the project I'm working on is bigger. Current project. Here's the dining room before, which was really atrocious. You can see where the reason the ceiling is falling is that they were removing a chimney above it and the bricks fell through the plaster. So they were just breaking it off from the roof and down, and then it came down in here. You can see bricks laying on the floor. And then that's like rock covering brick there. That's not real. So this is an ugly room. It had wainscot, wallpaper, a textured ceiling. So this ceiling is drywall over plaster, which I would never do, as you know, but we didn't want to tear down the whole ceiling. So we actually fixed the area that's damaged, and then the drywall is textured over texture. So they did the tree bark over the old texture. We removed the chimney, removed I already told you this. Then we actually decided that this is where our ductwork for the upstairs would run. We opted not to do a furnace in the attic, but just to upgrade the existing furnace to a bigger one and then run the ductwork up through here. And then when I also figured out there would be room for the hot water tank duct to go through the same passageway. Patched plaster ceilings and walls, painted to use light fixture. There's the end product. And you see that bump out there in the photo. That is what I'm talking about. All the ducts for the second floor run through here. It's a very large plenum, I think they call it. And then on this side, there's which side actually? I don't remember. I think it might be over here on the left side is where the double wall vent for the hot water tank goes up through there, and it has to have a certain clearance from touching anything. So it has, I forget how many inches, maybe.
That's a perfect solution.
Yeah, it all goes together, and the only thing you have to be careful about is not putting any long screws into there, which isn't a problem. The dining room, another couple pictures looking the other way. Turned out pretty nice. Nice size room too. There's a picture up at the top of me painting the lights. So I basically just made a little fixture. And when you're doing stuff like that, you have a nice sunny day. Sun makes paint dry very quickly. So it works. These were done very, very quickly. Now there was a room that was the second bedroom on the first floor that was to become a hallway and a bath, a half bath, laundry. So here's the plan. And if you look at it, here's the octagon room. This is the living room, dining room, kitchen. There's a bedroom in the back, full bath, and then they had Jack and Jill doors. Here's the other bedroom. Okay. So the blue walls are new. We closed off that doorway. We put this wall in. You can see this bedroom had the double doors, and it had a door going up to the attic here. All right, so now you know the first floor layout. And we kept pretty much everything the same except for this big change. So, oh, I pointed to it. That's cool. This is what it looked like in the beginning. And again, it has a drop ceiling. There's a door over here to the stairway, and it's one of those old stairways that turns. It's really cool. Double doors into this room is kind of that closet there that I'm pointing to was the creepiest room in the house. If you have any beliefs in supernatural things, this house had a presence, and the presence was in that closet and the basement. Interestingly, someone had cut out the floorboards in that closet and made a little trap door that you could get to the crawl space from, which made it kind of creepy, but it made it really a lot easier when we came time to do plumbing and wiring in the crawl space. We could get in that way too and hand tools down and stuff like that. We reframed that stairway, open wall. We salvaged the old trim. I'll show you pictures of that. Removed the drop ceiling and plaster and lath. Removed that doorway into the existing bathroom. I'll show you that in a couple other pictures. We framed the new wall, patched the plaster, replaced the doorknobs with reproductions. Here's the after. This is just the hallway
Wow.
portion. So you can see the open wall here so that people could get their furniture upstairs. It's carpeted, beautiful floor, beautiful trim. See this trim work here that I'm pointing to?
Mm-hmm.
That was salvaged from over here. I made these pieces out of this stuff. I also, my helper broke this trim when he was removing it. But it's actually two pieces, the top piece and then the bottom. And I'll show you how I fixed that. And then you see the doorknob, these doorknobs were original, but we cleaned them up. There's a couple more different view here. This is looking the other way. You can see above everything was gutted upstairs, and we haven't gotten to the upstairs yet, but you see the new wall to the right. These are basically just halfway through the process after we gutted. And then this is looking the other way where the bathroom ended up being. So there's the door into the, that's the other door into the bathroom. There's one on the other side as well. And then looking the other way, you see all my tools there. We did, in the bathroom, we did luxury vinyl planks and new trim on the new walls. And there's the after. So looking one way, towards the window there, you see this is the laundry. So you got your dryer here and your washer here. It didn't work out as planned. The original plan had the toilet over here, the sink here. I don't remember exactly, but we ended up having to move the door, and it was still awkward when we finished. Maybe this would have been a good candidate for a pocket door. and we didn't think about it early on. So this is an example of how, you know, we had to say, well, we already framed the wall. Is it worth getting a pocket door, or can we just work with it? So basically, if you move your dryer and washer in here, the washer, the door, when you open it, bumps into the washer. So you can only open the door part way, which is awkward. If I could have done it again, I would have definitely done a pocket door here. So that was one screw up. You can see the lights we used in both rooms are the.
And it's not ideal, but you could have made that door open out.
True. Yeah. Yeah. And we considered that too, and it's just not what you do with a bathroom for some reason.
I know. I know.
Now look at the toilet. I know I like to talk about toilets all the time. This is an American standard. I think it's the Edgemere model. It could be bought for about $175 on sale, or 190. I think this is the round version. The elongated bowl is a little bit more, but this is hands down the best toilet on the market. It's a decent price. It will last a long time. It will always flush. It will never clog. And I've put in a lot of these. I always recommend that. They look nice. And the other thing that American Standard does is they make them so you don't need tools to install them. Everything is used. They give you a plastic tool, and it's very quick to install. So your installation time is about half that of one where you would need tools.
What was
So,
that model name? I need to get two of them.
yeah, they're and they always go on sale at Lowe's. Do not go to Menards. For some reason, Menards has expensive toilets. I get a lot at Menards, but Lowe's is better for toilets for some reason. And then, you know, the vanity and countertop was a deal. I know I told everyone don't buy store brand faucets. This is actually a store brand faucet that came with the kit. And you know, a faucet's easy to replace, so I just justified it that way, and it was very cheap. But it all came together. And then if you see down here at the bottom, there's a vent in the bottom of this. Well, we had to move around the heating and cooling because there's two rooms now. So on the left over here, this is before, there's that cold air return metal grate that I transferred to the living room. We made the cold air return smaller. It's only about half that size. And then this was the heat grate. We took that out. I put a new one in the base of this. And so basically the heat comes up and angles out. And we could have probably kept the oak flooring in the bathroom, except that this got all chopped up. So we just went ahead and did the practical thing here. You can also see all the old trim. This is old, but on this wall right here, it's new. And that little bump out had to be added because the HVAC guy thought that we needed a big duct for cold air in that bedroom. And I kept saying, you don't need a duct for cold air. You can run it through the wall. And I made it so he could do that. And I was gone on a Monday, and I came back Tuesday, and this was already done. So he cut a giant hole in the floor and put this giant cold air duct that we didn't need. You can do what's called open plenum. An open plenum is where, for a cold air, not for heat or cool, just for the return air, you just have an opening at the bottom inside your wall and an opening at the top. And you just close off any openings, and then that air flows right through. You don't need this big giant duct. So I was really mad at him. And it changed the layout of our washing machine and dryer. So that upset me. That was one thing that went wrong.
Which affected your floor, which affected your door, which
Everything got messed up because of that. Here's some framing pics of that. You can see how messy it was. How hideous the walls were. Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned, we had to remove wallpaper border up there too. I've forgotten that. This is the back bedroom, the first floor bedroom that we retained. Now this room, it is hideous. And the problems we ran into here was they had covered the plaster walls with drywall. And then if you look up, you can see the ceiling is textured. We left that the way it was because it wasn't damaged at all. The little beadboard closet over here had a little door cut out for a cat, we're presuming because there was cat litter in there. So we like, oh, let's remove that. It's gonna, it didn't function very well. It's a very small closet with this old door. A lot of houses didn't have closets, so people would build them like this. And this was on the, you know, this was always a bedroom, we think. But we took it out. So that's on my list. Removed closet, framed a new closet with upper storage and bifolds. And we didn't have a lot of room. I'll show you in another picture. We didn't have a lot of room, so we did make a small closet, but I made it very functional. The ceiling fan we got was from Habitat. I think we spent $20 on it, and it was decent. And then I replaced the original doorknob. No, I don't know. I don't know if I replaced that door or replaced. We'll see. I can't remember now if I repaired it or replaced it. No, I repaired it. And then you see the new closet has all this storage up here.
Mm-hmm.
And then bifolds and looking up at the ceiling fan. That was a good buy. It's a little different fashion, but it, you know, at this point, I think we thought, well, $20, let's just do it. It didn't match the other ones, but
But it matches your floor really well, so it goes really well in there.
yeah, I think so. It wasn't my thought to do that. That was someone else. Here's what I did with the closet. Because it was so shallow, I made it so you could hang
Mm-hmm.
2 layers on each side and hang clothes in there and still have a pretty functional closet. But the reason we had to make the closet so small was because it was right up next to the window. Now here's the bathroom, and you can see before it had a mirrored shower doors and a jacuzzi tub, tile floor, a window, and then looking the other way, there's another beadboard storage closet, which we kept. And then they had put the door in wrong. So that door that leads into the bathroom, they had kind of stuck in there wrong. So I had to redo that, but not a big deal. We replaced everything except the floor, basically. And then I built new doors for the bottom because they were broken. And we kept the tile flooring, which didn't really look great, but that was not my choice again. So this is how it turned out. You can see this is a great picture of the tree bark ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
That is a Delta tub and 3-piece surround. I highly recommend these. I buy them all the time. They're easy to put in. They're durable. There's another, that toilet was actually I think that one was a used toilet that they brought to the project. That was not the American standard. That's the same vanity and sink top, but bigger as the other bathroom. Same light fixture, but 3 instead of 2, and then the same mirror, just a different size. So I did make the bathrooms try to look alike. The mirrors are from Menards. You can buy mirrors that have the mounting hardware already on the back, so they're easy to hang. And then here's some along the way. This is what it looked like, the framing. They had a big window in there at one time, and then that's all new drain plumbing that I had to do for the long.
There's a good picture of the back of lath, plaster and lath.
Ah, there you go. Yes.
Yeah, for those that are on the call that were
Yeah.
pondering what plaster and lath is, that's a great picture. You can see the plaster even it seeping through the slats there from the other side.
Yep, exactly. And all that plumbing there, you can see that that's the sink, the tub, and vent. Those are vent lines going up. So you always have to vent everything. and you can't share a drain. Like say if there was a bathroom above, the drain cannot share with a vent. It used to be in the old days they did that, but now you can't do that. So that's all new plumbing there. You can see the um, new toilet flange over here. That's the old one. This is the new one. That's the old tub drain. I hadn't put the tub drain in over here yet. I had to get in the crawl space for all that. Here's
Derek, I want to jump in for just a second.
Sure.
We are at 1:34. I know some folks have other commitments this afternoon, so
Okay.
please, if you need to jump off, we understand. This is being recorded and the replay is going to be in the academy at kathybinner.com under the real estate. And it'll have a graphic that is say 2024 replays. And so feel free to jump over there for the replay if you do need to jump off for now. So I just wanted to let everybody know where to find everything.
all right, and sorry it's so long, but I enjoyed
No,
doing
this
it.
is great. I love it.
So this is the creepy basement access off of the kitchen. There's basically a closet. We called it the pantry, and you can see how creepy it is. The first night we were there, we walked down the basement. We were talking about the water heater, etc., the furnace, and how the basement had flooded when the power was off, etc. You know, and we hear this hissing noise, and it just kind of like maybe like a snake hiss or something. And I tried to figure out what it was, and it seemed like it made the noise whenever someone would be on the stairs. So we got out of there. It was dark. We all had just flashlights. And then from then on, we were always kind of creeped out by the basement. Well, by the time we finished the project, I feel like there sometimes when you do this, you're adding positive energy and you're eliminating negative energy. And I think that's what happened, because by the time we were all done, this house seemed really happy. When we started, it was not. It was not a fun place to be. So anyway, we removed all that, moved the plaster and lath and ceiling, repaired that door. We kept that door because it was solid. It just needed a few repairs. Then that wall to the left was moving around on its own. Once we removed the plaster, we could tell it just wasn't even attached to the ceiling. So we had to repair that. And then the door wasn't put in properly, so I redid all that. And then all new trim around there. You'll see it. It looked nice. Just all we did was paint the floor in that room. And you could lift that door, very heavy, but you could lift it, and then there was a safety catch at the top. And I put a couple shelves in there and a light on the wall, and it turned out nice. Here's a couple in between pictures. And again, you can see that plaster and lath. Here's the kitchen plan. This is actually not anything special as far as software goes. This is called Curated. It's on Menard's website. And when you're buying cabinets, you can design your own kitchen that way. I do it for people. I also have 3D software that I can do a whole house like that, but it's time consuming. I've only done it on a couple, and people don't usually care about it, so I don't do it anymore. I also have AutoCAD, and that's how I do the plans. Like on my current project, I had to submit full plans for the permit and everything, so I did all that. I've been using AutoCAD since it was DOS based in the 90s, so I'm pretty good at it, and used it as a design engineer in my first engineering job. So here's before kitchen. And when we first started, he wanted to just keep all this, and you can't do that if you're going to flip. You really can't. I said, no, you can't sell a house with this kind of kitchen. But I think in the back of his mind, he wasn't sure if he was going to rent it or not. You know, it was always there as an option, which is fine. That's what you should do. But you got to make up your mind. And I made it up for him. And we removed the cabinets, and then we found that the walls had, you know, piles and piles of layers of stuff. You can see the paneling. That back door was in bad shape. So we removed the cabinets, paneling, plaster and lath. We initially were not going to remove the plaster, but we had to. The subfloor under the sink was all gone. We had to patch all that. And then the back wall where the door was, when we started replacing the door, we realized that the wall was moving around. And the ledger board, so the ledger board is either a 1x or usually 2x that runs around all of the floor joists around the base of a house. So you've got a sill plate that it all rests on. That was rotten. The ledger board was rotten. So this is all under this back door here. So we had to reframe a lot of that. Now, on what Kathy was saying about these TV shows, that's kind of like when you open a can of worms and then they go to a commercial. Well, that's just stuff I do. And like she was saying, we know we've been through it. Sometimes it's tricky, and in this case, it was tricky because they had a huge. I wish I had pictures of it. I don't. The back porch was a giant concrete deck. I don't know what else to call it because it was raised up, but it was all concrete, huge, all the way across the back of the house. And to get to the sill plate and ledger board, the only way I could get to it was from the basement. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, and we had to keep this wall. This back wall really needed reframed. So what I did was I repaired from below. I wish I'd taken pictures, but repaired from below, and then fastened the wall back down, and it's all strong now. It's all good and not rotten. Rear entry door, and we put LVP flooring just like matched the laundry room. And then a used light fixture again. I don't even think we had paint this one. I think it was white, so we left it. All new trim, of course. And here's the end result. And it's rental grade. But I'll tell you, I recommended to him not to do granite and not to go fancy because nobody in the neighborhood had a kitchen with granite or anything. That was an example. If I were going to flip a house in a
Is this
nicer
just for
area-
Micah then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I did all that. So that all the cabinets, everything in here I did.
All my rentals have Formica, and the reason that I stick with that is because if they do mess up a countertop, you're
Yeah.
only talking a couple $100 to buy a new one.
Yeah, the install is a lot more expensive than the actual countertop. So
Well, except I have Mark.
right, exactly. So, but you have to consider that, and I don't do granite quartz. You have someone do that, and the reason I say that is they will put the sink in. They'll mount the sink for you. If they break it, you don't have to pay for it.
Right.
So I prefer that, and I don't really like putting in Formica countertops. I don't like it. It is not fun. I have some great new techniques that I've learned and everything, and I'm good at it, but there's some things I just don't like doing. So I did it because it was cost effective and we needed it done, but I hate doing it. And
Well, the kitchen looks very nice.
well, and one thing I would say, if you notice, if you look at the window frame actually goes below the back of that sink thing. And this is another thing with planning. He had me talk to the window guy, say, we need to shorten this up because it's in the wrong place. That's another example. It was hard to work around this kitchen because it's a walk through. You got to walk to the back door. You got to walk to the basement, to the other bedroom. The back bedroom is accessed this way. So we really didn't have a lot of space for cabinets and stuff. Here's another hack that I've learned since then. That in rentals, whether they be short-term, long-term, whatever, even a flip, I would do this. You can save money by taking out some of these upper cabinets and putting shelves. And one way to do that is if you've got, let's say you've got cabinets and then you put shelves in between two of them, you've eliminated probably a couple $100 there in cost. I wouldn't put them everywhere, but a lot of people like that, especially tidy people. They like to show off their beautiful Fiesta ware or their crystal or whatever, and then in the shelves. And then it's real practical. I've stayed in a lot of short-term rentals that have your bare necessities, just enough plates and silverware and glasses for you and whoever else you have with you, and that's it. And they just have shelves. There's no cabinets. It's very practical. It's easy to clean. So that's another hack I didn't have listed here. Here's this. This is going, now we're going up to the upstairs. Here's the old stairway that we talked about that you entered through a door. And you can see, looking up into it, you can see what the second floor looks like. It's just an open attic. We removed the plaster and lath, framed new stringers at the top. I'll explain that in a minute. The steps basically went around the corner to avoid a chimney. I'll show you pictures of that. And then replaced all the broken treads and trim.
Did the stairs turn twice?
Yes, they turn at
I
the bottom
love
and
that.
the top. Yep.
I love that.
Now they only turn at the bottom, and I'll again, they turned at the top, but very awkwardly.
Okay.
I'll show you why. Now, back in when I was young and very strong, there was a property in Victorian Village where the stairs to the second floor turned twice. They did a full 180 at the top, is what it was. And then to go up to the third floor was the same thing. And we found 3 old refrigerators up on the third floor. Like they couldn't move them downstairs for some reason, so they put them upstairs. Well, we got them down that first set of stairs, but we had already changed the stairway for this unit. It used to be a single family, made it into a double, so we couldn't get the fridges down. So we took out the entire framing and window on the back of the house and put some heavy 2x4s over the brick and shoved the refrigerators out the window, and they fell freely to the ground below. And they were very heavy. The new ones are super light. So anyway, that's an old story from the past. And I forgot something. If we can just pause. Remember I mentioned this guy was living in the house and used the toilet? Well, that was all in the toilet. It never got flushed. And I had to go to Menards, and I said to my helper, I said, just get the vanity out. Wait for me. We'll put the toilet into a trash bag and carry it out, And he got bored and decided to try to get the tub out. And the toilet was already unbolted from the floor. And as he's trying to wrestle the tub out of there, which is plastic, but it was big, he knocked the toilet over.
Oh, Derek.
Yes. So I get back and the house smells like sewer. And I said, what happened? He goes, you're not going to believe it. And I said, no, I think I know what happened, and I'm not cleaning it up. So he thought that we could go to the store and buy that stuff that makes paint turn hard, so you can throw paint in the trash. I said, that's not going to work. You don't understand. So I said, don't do anything. Just wait.
Chemically, it's not the same thing.
I'm trying to think so. So finally I said, I know, we'll get cat litter. We'll just cover it with cat litter. And that worked. And he cleaned it up. And the toilet went into a bag and, into the trash and everything. So everything worked out, but it was really gross. That was one of the funny things he did that I still laugh to this day. So here's some pictures of the transition. You can see what we did. We cut the wall. We made a new wall. Now, one question that might come up was that a load-bearing wall, and it was not. There's a rafter that goes right across there, and it's a double, so it's framed correctly for the stairway, so it wasn't going to affect that. I had to make sure we could do that before I did it. And you can see more lath there. There's lots of pictures of lath. And then you can see what I did with the trim. I salvaged that trim, and then it later got painted. Now, here's where look below here and you see this piece of wood that's
Mhm.
nice and fresh. And you see this top piece, it's a little bit broken here. But we couldn't find that. And this helper guy kept throwing stuff away. And I would dig through the trash to get some of the trim pieces that he threw away. I salvaged, this is all salvage wood. These little corners here, that's salvaged. I went up around the stairway and took pieces from what I had taken out up here, not up here, but where the door was, used that to wrap the bottom of the stairs where the trim was missing. This piece here is the bottom piece. I took an old one, matched it up on my table saw and ran that through, and then this piece goes right over it. And then we left that the way it was, but when it's painted, it really doesn't show. So that's what you do in these old houses. You try to preserve that as much as you can. And paint and caulk covers a lot. So they ended up looking
Mhm.
beautiful. Oh, I'm pointing to it. I forgot all about these arrows I added. Then there's a, over to the right, it kind of shows what I did with the top rail there.
Mhm.
And that all got painted. Here's what I was talking about. If you're looking at this, there was a chimney right here.
Oh, so the steps had to go around that chimney.
Yeah. And then this was missing. So we always had to jump up there, you know, to get to the second floor. And then there's this void down in here. There's a picture that shows all this space down in here that's still there inside the wall. And we did use it for some wiring. We ran some wiring up to the second floor there. But I had to change this. And so what I had to do was finish, I had to put support in here and have something to support two new stringers that went up. I might have done three. I think I did three. We'll see. I know I have pictures. There it is, three stringers.
Mhm.
And then temporarily, I just used OSB steps while everything was being carried up. I didn't want to damage any of the treads. So, you know, about doing things in order, when you're carrying materials in and out of a house, you don't want to like, you really don't want to do the floors, refinish the floors early in the project. They're going to get banged up, dirty, painted.
Mhm.
And if you're doing stairs, the stair treads were almost the last thing I did. And they were getting covered with carpet, but the guy who came to do the quote for the insulation was 6'5", probably 300 pounds. He broke one of the old stair treads just by walking on it. He didn't stomp or anything. He broke it. So, you know, I was like, well, you know, they're old, they're brittle. Here's another picture looking up. After the drywall was up, you can see we were still using, we didn't put new stair treads in yet. That's just temporary. So that's an example.
That's amazing that you can just transform
Mhm.
an attic that looks that rough
Yeah,
into something
you haven't
so
seen anything
beautiful.
yet. You really haven't
I
seen
know.
anything yet.
I see what's coming.
See there's the new treads now. You can see I replaced one down at the bottom is the one he broke way down here. And then this one was bad. And then these are the new ones that were new. And there's a couple more pictures. And then I have the risers or kick plates, whatever you call them.
Mhm.
And now this is showing the plan here. The reason I have a roof plan is I had to figure out where these knee walls had to go.
Mhm.
And if anyone wants to know what is a knee wall is a partial wall. I like to make them 5 feet high so you don't bump your head on the ceiling. But some houses have them lower than that, and you walk over and you bump your head on the ceiling. So this, at this peak here, this was 16 feet if you were up there. So we realized that this was a totally underutilized space, and we could fit 3 bedrooms, a full bath, possibly 4 bedrooms. But after the knee wall, this front area was too small to be a useful room. It was, you know, it's 8 by 13, but there's no way to like put a door right here. You can see where this
Mhm.
ridge, or not ridge, this valley is. You when you're walking up the stairs, if you're a tall person, you bump your head here. So I'm only 6 feet with my shoes on, but I had to watch where I walked. So this couldn't be a full functional bedroom. And this window in the front wasn't big enough to be egress. Now here's where the window thing came in. They ordered windows before I got there, and the owner decided he wanted to make the second floor into a full usable space. And the window guy is not a framer. He does wonderful work. He wraps them all with aluminum and everything like that. He did a great job. He got quality windows, but these upstairs windows could have been bigger, and it wouldn't have taken me very long to reframe. So I kind of wish we had done that. It turned out fine, but and then that front window was the oval one. He didn't do that one. I did, because that was an afterthought. We found out we couldn't keep it. We wanted to keep it, but that's what I did here. Was this is an actual framing of the roof just to get the knee wall locations. Now some of this changed. This area, the bathroom changed. Some of the dimensions on the rooms changed slightly along the way, but it's basically the same layout you see right here. And all that from unused space. So here, we're looking north, and you can see the chimney that later got removed the rest of the way. This part was just what they did at the top at that point, and then the rest of it was removed. So that's the unused chimney.
Is there a slate roof on this house?
There was, but
Okay.
you can see that's all new sheathing.
Okay, that's what I thought.
If anyone wants to know, sheathing is, some people say sheeting, but it's actually sheathing. In the old days, do you see these slats going horizontally? There wouldn't have been any plywood or anything above those. Those were just nailers for the slate roof. That's why Kathy asked. And you can see this beautiful framing. These valley rafters, I measured and everything, and they were perfect. And somebody put in these 2x4s, this one and this one, to support, and they weren't even needed. I think they were just worried about them sagging, but none of this was sagged. I checked everything up here for structural. I added a couple structural screws and brackets, but I really didn't have to do very much. And then I knew once we put our knee walls in, that would help support all along here. So the knee walls, and then, I mean, it was a great time. This was fun up here for me. And then this is the same room. This is the big bedroom. So over here,
Wow.
this is looking north, and then looking back this way is that closet. And then this is inside the closet. Pretty roomy. Now, this was more expensive to do the ceilings like this, but I thought just doing 8 foot across was just going to be boring. And we're thinking, what is going to make this place pop? And I said, vaulted ceilings. And I think it really does. And, you know, they waste a lot more drywall doing corners and stuff like this, but we didn't really have a choice. Now, another thing I want you to notice is where the valley rafters are the ones right here. These are valley rafters. Here, there's several of them. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe. Anyway, those sat proud of the drywall because they're bigger than the rafters, the other rafters. We had to do something with that. The first drywall guy was going to wrap them in drywall. The second drywall guy says, I can't do that. So we put trim on both sides, just quarter round, and then painted them and caulked them. Lots of caulk. And none of them were, you can see it's a little bigger at the top than at the top. None of them are really perfect, but we just made do, and it gives it character. And then you can see the tree bark texture, which I love. That's my favorite. And you can see the new venting and everything. And then we left attic access in the closet there for this part of the attic. There is still a little storage space back in there. All right, then moving on. This is the south bedroom. So looking the opposite direction. So south is this window over here. And there's after. There's that same window.
Wow.
And then that, looking the opposite direction, we put a little closet there. The stairway is to the left. So that first bedroom was straight across from the stairway. This one's right around the corner. Then this is looking east towards the back of the house. And I cropped this because to the left of the window was the bathroom, to the right is the bedroom, the third bedroom. And there's after. You can see the wall there.
Mm-hmm.
It's the wall to the bathroom. So this is if you turn right at the top of the stairs, this is at the end of the hallway. And they're all pretty good sized bedrooms. They're all like 11 by 13 or bigger. That big one is real big. It's like 20 feet long. And then I just took pictures of the vaults, and I saw, oh, I had an episode during the project. I'm doing all the trim and my saw died, or I thought it did. It sounded terrible. I went to Lowe's and they had the old model DeWalt's on marked down $200, and they had the new model sitting right next to it. And they were almost identical. I said, well, I'm buying this. So I bought a new saw. Then I was going through all my junk. And I said, I got to throw this saw away, but I'm going to get the blade. The blade's a $50 blade. And I realized it wasn't broken. The blade was just loose. So I now have two saws. And the old one is almost 30 years old anyway. So it was time. Here is the bathroom, which you got a glimpse of just in the last picture. But over in this corner to the left of this window, that's where the bathroom's going. So there's a finished product. And you'll notice, again, the same vanity, same light, same mirror is downstairs, same hardware, same flooring, same tub and surround is downstairs, just the opposite direction. Same fan and light. For some reason, I have a knack for finding fan lights on sale. These were half price. And then the same new toilet, American Standard, edge mirror. Now this little cupboard thing, there's one in the downstairs half bath. Those were in my storage unit, so I donated those to the project. They were free and I needed to get rid of them. So I donated quite a few things like that just to get rid of stuff. Then here are pictures of where the hallway ended up being. I just took some, and then their afters, their significant afters. So that's looking down the hall. And the cool part is the vault in the bedroom on this side, the north bedroom, and on the south bedroom, we continued that vault in the hallway just to give it a neat focal point. I don't have any good pictures, but there's a pendant light up in here. The rest of these lights are LED recessed lights. You can see the bottom of the pendant light right there.
Yep, I love it.
Yeah. And then the closet there, I put in regular wood shelves in that, the linen closet. That's at the corner right where the bathroom entry is. And that's,
Derek, every time I think I'm going to change my paint color, I see it used and I love it. I still love this paint
it
color.
looks good, yeah. And he wasn't a fan of gray. My other suggestion was like a lazy gray, but he didn't like gray. This is where the chimney used to be, and now all the duct goes up right behind this closet. So this closet ended up being only about 16 inches deep, where in the original plan it was much bigger. But we needed all that for the ducting and the hot water duct as well. A vent. Here's some more pics of the rafter. We replaced all those, what do they call those? There's a name for these. They are not actually rafters. The things above are rafters. These are called roof ties, maybe. And they kind of help this triangle stay more rigid. And then this is where I kept that vault going all the way across. So that was my little design feature that cost more money. But he okayed it, said, yeah, let's do it. You can see the knee walls. And we don't have plywood floors down yet. And then in this picture, we had one of our many unwanted residents. This is not the guy that pooped in the toilet. This is a bat. He left because we made lots of noise. He never came back. But we had several birds come in, and we had a family of squirrels living in the eaves, and we had to use squirrel repellent and rodent foam to keep them out, and that worked. But it was a fun day trying to get rid of them. And this is towards the front of the house, looking west, where I had that oval thing. Now they had
This was that small room that you can use
Yeah.
as a bedroom. Yeah.
and you can see where the stairs come up right here. You're really close to this
Mhm.
alley rafter. And in the front here, there were these two boards that went across, and we just kept using it as a table for things. And towards the end of the project, we made it into a window seat. I did a custom window. So you can see I took edge glued shelf board and made a window seat out of it and just trimmed it in. That's all trimmed in for the window. I made this top here. I took a handrail and stained it the same color. So that's all. But you see how close this is?
Mhm.
A tall person would knock their head there. We used the same pendant light here, and then the other part of the hallway. And those pendant lights were dirt cheap. I got them on clearance at Menards. They were like $9 a piece, I think. Then these are like just transition photos. You can see the process that we had going on here. The top for the stairway, that got painted. If I had done it again, I probably would have stained and finished that and the one at the bottom of the stairs, but it was kind of late in the game when we did that. All right. That's it.
Wow. Go ahead and stop your share. There. Perfect. Derek, thank you. Gosh, I love your work. It looks amazing as usual.
I didn't even
So-
show you that we did all the wiring and plumbing, and that was fun. I love doing wiring especially. And
Now, what were some of his numbers? Do you know what he paid for the property and how much did he actually put into the rehab?
yeah, I might be off a little bit on what the rehab cost was, but he paid 30 for the house.
Okay.
It has a large backyard. There's room for a garage back there. There's a fence all the way around. And that doesn't sound bad, but he put 150 into rehab.
Okay.
And
So he's all in at what, 180?
yeah. And I said there's no way this place will appraise for more than 120, and it appraised for 180. So
But he has 180 in it and it appraised for
Yeah,
180. So
yeah.
at this point, his exit strategy was to just rent it.
right. We
And-
knew further into the project that he would probably have to rent it because he originally the scope was much smaller originally, and then we got into it and it's like, well, we got to do this. It was just like those shows where and the dollar signs are just going everywhere, and there was nothing you could do about it. I think he spent too much on the HVAC, but everything else was right in line. It was just, hey, we didn't plan originally on removing those ceilings. In fact, the one ceiling, I think it was the living room. The reason we replaced the living room ceiling was that I fell through it. I stepped through the ceiling. And then the adjacent room, the handyman stepped through that ceiling, although that was one we were definitely replacing. So then we're like, well, let's just replace it. And you know how much it costs? Not very much. That's not a deal breaker. But I think he paid probably twice what he should have for HVAC. I think that was close to 20 grand.
But it turned out okay because now, even though he doesn't have a lot of room in the deal at the end of his rehab, from here on out, it's going to do nothing but get better.
It can be a burr later. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's not that kind of person where he wants to borrow money, but he borrowed his own equity to do
Mhm.
this, which is smart. And you know, he's the kind of person who makes a lot of money. He's going to pay all that down really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so he doesn't have any banks involved other than his HELOC. You know, he's used his own home equity, and he's gonna, like I said, he makes a lot of money, where he'll pay that off quickly, and then all this cash flow is cash flow. So in the long run, that's cool. His
Right.
ROI is a little longer than I would have liked, but that's me, and I'm
Mhm.
in a different situation.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and you know, we were surprised it came in at 180, and that's good. And
That's wonderful. Yeah.
everyone in the neighborhood loved the place. You know, the people that we knew that trusted, they walked through, and you know, the neighbor that helped us, he loved it. Everyone loved it. And then he, so, you know, by the time we were over budget, we knew he'd probably be renting. He started thinking about what can I get for rent? And we're like, okay, 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath. It's not Columbus, but he was like, I need to get 2,200. And I said, okay, this is something you've never done before, but you have to do background screening on your tenants. You know, you've had problems before. We talked about it. And I don't know if he did. I really don't. But he did find a 1-person renter. This is a man with a dog. And it was fine paying that. So he's a middle-aged guy. He's like me. He makes decent money. He could afford it. He didn't want to buy a house. He's renting it.
Hey,
It worked.
he might be there for years.
Yeah, yeah. So he
Just
got
paying.
someone in there, and like
Yeah.
you said, hopefully he can retain him. It's a nice place. I would love to live there if it wasn't in Marion. I would have loved living in that house. It's nice and spacious. It's got
Yeah.
character. So it all worked
Good
out.
job.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Derek, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Questions. I want to go to Kyle first. And Kyle, I want to get you on recording. I don't know if I saw that you turned your video off, so I don't know if you can come back on and tell folks how to get in touch with you. So I'll give you a chance to come on. For folks that are listening to this, you can reach me at kathybinner.com. I have the Kathy Benner International Academy, and that's where you'll find the replay for this. If you just go to kathybinner.com and go to the real estate investors, you'll see the 2024 replays, and it's all free. It's on a Teachable platform, and so you'll probably have to sign up for Teachable, but it's a free account just with your email there and get signed up, and then you can go in and just check out everything that's free. Kyle, tell the folks where they can reach you. He is our in-house realtor, and not to forget, we're doing a boots on the ground this week at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. So Kyle, how can folks get in touch with you?
Well, I'm pretty sure I've got a page or my information listed on your website too. So if you're already on Kathy's website, you'll probably see me there in the Happy House Hunters section. Or you could also bounce over to my website. I am kylebrandon.com. Or you can Facebook stalk me, or my favorite method of communication is text 614-769-7057. And I've got a big attic for Derek to come work on too.
Awesome.
I love it. I love it. And so then we're going to go to Derek, and Derek, tell folks how they can get in contact with you.
I just put it on the
Oh, good.
chat. Yep.
Good, good, good. Yep,
Yeah,
I see it.
best way is texting, but any of those, I'm on. If you want to check out some other pictures, I haven't updated a lot, but there's some great pictures on Facebook also of other projects. I haven't posted this one on there, but there's some, you know, I do a little bit of everything a lot. I like to do custom stuff too. So, and I do design work for people. So
Yep. Great work, folks. So get in touch with Derek, get in touch with Kyle, connect with me. Rita and Sherry, any questions for us? And it can be any topic on the finding, funding, fixing, flipping, filling, or freedom.
I do have a question. Thank you for Kathy, and thank you, Derek, for your presentation. I'm actually not doing rehabbing currently, but I am looking to purchase a second home, which would be a vacation home. So my current home is bought and paid for, thank God. I'm looking for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo near the beach, which is about 2.5 hours east of where I live. So
okay, tell the folks where you're coming to us from.
I'm in North Carolina, in the Raleigh area. So the beach is about 2 hours east. So I want something that has no exterior maintenance. We can just go when we want to go for a getaway and then rent it short term in between. My question is about how to do the financing, because I know I have a lot of different options. I'm in my late 50s, my husband's in his late 60s, so we can use retirement money of his. So I'm like, and I have cash, we could definitely do a minimum of 20% down payment. But I'm not sure about how much, if the standard, stock market is making, 6 or 7% for, growth for our retirement. Should we just leave that alone or use, cash money and do, some cash and then the rest, a bigger mortgage? So that's, I'm debating about that. And then the other part is, when I did some real estate investing in the past, they always recommended us to purchase with an LLC for asset protection. And then I have an LLC for my business, which doesn't have all that capital. My capital is personal capital. But I will use that location as an office too, because I work virtually, when I go there. So could I purchase it under my business or under my LLC? Or does the money have to be in that business account in order to use the money from that? Or like, what is the best way to go about that?
Well, since you're just getting started and doing some investments in addition to your home, most of the mortgage companies out there, if you're not going to pay cash, most of the mortgage companies out there, and Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the mortgage companies are going to want to verify that you're liquid enough to borrow the money. And so I don't think it's going to matter to them whether you purchase it in your name or whether you purchase it in your current LLC or whether you open up a brand new LLC. They're still going to have you sign on the dotted line verifying. So I don't think it matters to the lender what entity owns the property because they're going to base the loan on your finances, your personal finances. So that's just my first take on it. If for tax purposes, and I will jump over since I just did all of my taxes this year, I will jump over for tax purposes. You'll probably want to open a separate LLC if in fact you want it under an LLC, because then that LLC will be under a Schedule E, whereas your business is under a Schedule C. And that just makes filing taxes a little easier for you if it were two separate LLCs, one for your business that you're currently doing, which doesn't have anything to do with property investing. And then if you're going to rent the condo as a short term, have it have its own LLC so that you file it over on your Schedule E. It just makes your tax return a little cleaner.
And do you think that, because I know doing another LLC is a little extra work. So, I mean, do I have to do that or is it okay to just buy it? And I'm also thinking about legacy too.
Just buy
it. And I'm passing it down to my daughter eventually. So, I want it to be in the family long-term, as a nice beach getaway.
Yeah. So if you're looking ahead, I probably would create the LLC now, because if you buy it personally into your name and you don't buy it into your new LLC for the property itself, if you buy it into your personal name, then later when you transfer it into the LLC, if you say 10 years down the road, say, I think we are going to put this in an LLC so it can be, a family property. There is a clause in a mortgage that they could, not that they would, but they could call the note because it's changing ownership. And in your mortgage, it says you can't give your house away if that's what they're using as collateral for the loan. And by you taking it out of your name and putting it into an LLC now changes the terms of that original mortgage contract. So if it were me, and you think that you might want to create this, and again, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a CPA, so get some legal advice here before you go forward. But if it were me, I would probably look at doing the LLC up front. But then that might make a difference on what kind of a loan you can get if you want to close right into the LLC. When I bought my condo in Florida, there was a lender who had a type of loan for a vacation property, owner occupied vacation property. And I got mine back when interest was, at 3%. And anytime you had a commercial property, it was at 5% back then. And I was able to get my condo under a personal note for owner occupant vacation property at 3%. And then after one full year, like an FHA, after one full year, then I was allowed to rent it out. And so that's the route that I went. So there's 1,000,001 mortgage variations out there as well. And every state is a little different, and I'm not that familiar with what is available in your state. But when you get to those beach communities, which you have, which we don't have in Ohio, which you do have in your state, there's mortgage companies that cater to those types of properties, which can be a better deal for you than maybe a traditional mortgage note. Yes, Derek, thoughts?
Yeah, the other thing I was going to add was if you do that owner occupied vacation property loan, that type of loan, then you're only putting 10% down versus potentially more. So
Correct.
And you can do that as long as that's the only one in that area. And there's some kind of limitation of how far apart your vacation rentals can be. So, if you wanted more than one,
because then they think that you're doing it and buying investments all in a row. So you can't have like 10 of them in the same complex.
In that type of mortgage, yes.
In that type of a mortgage, right?
So if you bought a second one in the same neighborhood, you'd have to do a traditional mortgage with more down. But
okay, so why do they only require 10% down? Because you're not living there.
It's that because it's a vacation second home. I think it's called a second home mortgage.
A second home mortgage. Mm-hmm.
When you're talking, I would go through a mortgage broker because they'll know all those options and then the interest rate options as well, and can find the best deal for you rather than just going yourself and trying to find those. I would do a mortgage broker for sure.
Okay. And then as far as the interest rates, like I'm not even sure what they are. They're a little over what, 5% now for
Oh no, they're closer to 7 to 9.
7.5. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So if the stock market is making less than that on average, then would you take more cash out of your retirement fund to fund it?
It's so hard to know what's going to be going on down the road. Boy, if we all had a crystal ball, it'd be a whole lot easier to make these choices. Is there a way that you can borrow out of your retirement fund without actually cashing it out?
How?
I mean, that's what I'm asking. Is there an option to borrow the funds instead of just taking some cash out of it? Can you just borrow some funds out of it? Like I have an IRA and I can actually borrow the money out of the IRA. Then it's up to me if I pay it back or not. And if I pay it back, then I don't lose any interest. If I don't pay it back, then they just reduce my settlement at the other end. But I have the option to borrow the money at a lesser rate than what they're paying, which means I get cheaper money.
Okay, so then then I'm just basically paying back my own IRA with the payments. Right. Okay, now I'm not 59 yet, but my husband is. Mm-hmm. So to borrow, I'm sure would you have to be at least 59 and a half?
Nope, not if you're borrowing it. No, it's only if you're going to take payments, take cash out of it is when you have to be at a certain age. If you're just borrowing it, you can be any age to borrow it.
Do you have to pay an interest rate like a loan or no?
But it's usually because you're borrowing your own money, it's usually a lot less.
Okay.
So again, check with your retirement plan and see. And then the other option is I would check with doing maybe a line of credit from your home.
Yeah, because it's paid for. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different ways to slice it. You'll have to kind of just see which way appeals to you more. I do like to point out too, when people, if you do go more the traditional financing route, you don't have to do a 30-year loan. You can do 20 years, 15 years, 10 years, and you can also pay a little more upfront to buy down your interest rate. So if 7.5% seems like sticker shock to you, you can buy points and you can buy your interest rate down to 6 or 5 and to see if that helps you over your long haul too. So lots of different ways to cut that cake.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So the best thing, if it were me, do you know about how much you want to spend, or you don't know that yet?
Yeah, I'm looking in the low 200,000 range.
Okay. So once you start looking at the properties, and you kind of have an idea of what area you want to be in and what price range you want to be in, it wouldn't be too soon to get a hold of a mortgage broker like Derek's talking about, and just saying, here's what we have in mind. We think we're going to spend about 230,000, and this is the area we want to be in, and what options, what are all our different options, and then just kind of make a spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be super analytical spreadsheet, but just make a note on what is the interest, what are we going to pay over the course of a 20-year or 30-year note, what is our total payments going to be, and see if it's better to buy down early, like Kyle's talking about, and then all of it will have to fit into what your personal finance cash flow is. And you might decide that you want to spend more upfront and have less coming out 20 years down the road. Or maybe you're like, you know what, we just want to get in there and and then here's the other point. We just want to get in there and refinance later. Who knows what's going to happen 5 years from now? You might say, oh, the best thing for us to do is refinance this thing. We're refinancing everything at this point. I mean, that's what happened when interest dropped out, the bottom dropped out before, and everything was super, super low interest. Everybody was refinancing. Even folks that thought they'd never refinance were refinancing because it just made sense. And again, if we only had a crystal ball.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but I think you're on the right path, because you know what? They're not making more real property. The earth is what it is, and anytime you can buy a piece of it, it's a good investment.
Yeah.
Wherever you buy, it's a good investment. And whatever you pay, like I said, there's no bad real estate deal. There's just good, better, and best. And so, and you can turn a mediocre deal into a great deal down the road, just by refinancing, or, by leveraging your equity. There's just all kinds of ways to turn an okay deal into an amazing deal.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure I'll be reaching out to you for more coaching on this
Oh,
one, Kathy.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yes. I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
Any final comments from anyone? I think Sherry was multitasking. We haven't heard from her, but she's hung in there. All right, Derek, again, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on. I love looking at your work and seeing what you're doing. And what big project do you have coming up? Anything coming up soon?
Just the one I'm working on, and that is a flip. It's in the Groveport area.
Okay.
And I would
Maybe
say
we can do a boots over there at some point.
we should, yeah. It's not ready yet, but
Okay.
we're having trouble getting people to get their stuff out of there.
I get it.
But we've already started on the exterior. So
Okay.
once we get the inside cleaned out, then we can definitely do that. And it's going to be going for a while. At least 4 or 5 months probably.
Okay.
So. And I'm not doing all the work on that. I'm getting paid to manage it, and then I'm getting a cut at the end. So it's beneficial for me, and I'm also, doing some of the work. So it's all good, and it's good in the background when I'm doing some other projects. I always have this going. So I love doing big rehabs, but last year I did 4, and they overlapped, and that was a challenge.
Oh, I bet.
I've learned some lessons about that. When I was an engineer, we had no less than 30 projects going at once, but this is different. You can't, it's very hard to do that. So
I have 2 vacancies at the same time. And then we have a third one that, we're like, okay, are we gonna non-renew this gal? We're gonna let her. And finally, I just told Mark, I said, I can't have 3 vacancies at the same time. You got to let me. Oh, there's your cohort. Is that who was making all the noise? So I told Mark, so I get it. I said, no, I said, let's get 1 or 2 of these filled before we end up with the 3rd vacancy. I said, I can't handle 3 at a time, because once I advertise them, of course, you've got people coming out of the woodwork, and I get questions every day. Is this still available? And what's the rent? And when can I move in? And, and it's just a lot coming at you all at once. And so I agree with you. You can't handle very many at a time. So 2 is my limit.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to focus, and then I'm doing a lot of the work, so it's not
Yeah.
like I have a crew really. I only have 2 part-time guys, so it'd be very hard to. And this guy
Yep.
doesn't do much at all for me. He just keeps me happy.
I see that.
What? I better get going.
Yes, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
And we will see everyone next time. So thank you for coming on with us. And Kyle, I'll see you this week.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right. See everybody later. Bye.
Thanks.